Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series 2023, where we aim to add value to people's lives, happening every Wednesday and Thursday on ebizradio.com. We can chat everything leadership, coaching, and marketing, and you can catch the Lunchtime Series on all your major podcast channels today. To help us grow the channel, please follow, like, and share. And on today's coaching segment, we have a very special guest with some very practical information she's going to be sharing around South African-based insights on the challenges that employees and employers face currently. So with the executive or executing strategy and driving efficiencies, at least, the Chief Operational Efficiency and Strategist joining us this morning, Natalie Davies. How are you doing, Natalie?
Well, and you, Kevin. Thanks for the invite.
Fantastic. So don't you just want to give us a sort of a brief insight on who you are and what it is you do?
Okay, I think your introduction was great, albeit a mouthful. Essentially, I work across all the divisions in our business to identify where we can be more efficient and where we can create a magical customer experience, because that's what brings the revenue, and also to make sure that what we're doing operationally in the business aligns with the strategy and our bigger goals as an organization. I think so often in companies, the executive discussions and what's in the boardroom agenda is so often lost by the time the rubber hits the road at the coalface. And so a big part of my job is bridging that great divide.
So, I mean, one of the things that I thought would be interesting to chat about today is the research that you guys have done around, building the future-ready workforce, especially for South Africans. Don't you sort of want to just give us sort of a point of what that sort of research was about, and what are some of the findings that actually came out of that?
Okay, so as lockdown came about, and then throughout the various stages of lockdown, we engaged with employees across different organizations. So as a group, as PLP, we run employee engagement programs for many organizations across industry, small businesses, bigger corporates, from FMCG to insurance and banking to consulting, you name it. So we've got a really nice cross-section. It gave us access to just under 17,000 employees, where we were able to engage with them on a one-on-one basis. So our research was very focused and very personalized to start getting insights in terms of what were their pain points, both personally and from a career or a work perspective. What were their priorities? What were they doing to cope? What were they doing for fun? And we engaged with the staff throughout the various stages of COVID and lockdown, and even then post-COVID, to try and get a sense of what are employers facing, what challenges are they facing. I think everybody was very quick to say, oh, I'm far more productive working from home and online, and we really wanted to unpack that a bit. And coming out of that, we put together a report that really highlights it. I often say that from a South African context perspective, we're a very unique country. We've got a very unique workforce and very unique challenges. So I certainly like to expose myself to what's happening globally. I do think there's a space for a South African specific context, and that's really what our report focused on.
So, I mean, one of the pain points, I'm just looking at the report here, and, it starts off with COVID, or it mentions COVID at least. Do you think that throughout the research, and have you noticed this as also an unspoken phenomenon, that people have really suffered a lot of trauma, that people have really gone through a lot of grief and a lot of loss, that they sort of just had to get over because we had to try and get back to this normals, or normalcy, whatever that means, and just get on with it? Is that something that you guys sort of found while going through this research?
Very much so. And I think because I was interviewing a lot of people on a one-on-one basis, pretty much like how you and I are talking right now, people felt very comfortable and very safe and were very honest. So I'll give you some quotes to answer your question. We had a few people saying, just because we are leveling down does not mean we're moving on, which really stuck with me. I think so from a business point of view, businesses were very quick to go, there's a new level and there's a new stage and now we can have more people and we can do this, and really, but not paying attention to, well, doesn't mean that just because things have opened up that staff have moved on or people have moved on and gone, oh, okay, great, that's behind us. Let's go to the next stage. What a few other people said, another quote was, just because everybody's going through it does not make it any easier. And I think, Kevin, that is our biggest challenge, is we've become, because this was a global phenomenon and everybody has suffered trauma and everybody has suffered loss, we lost the empathy and the acknowledgement of, it doesn't matter that, oh yes, I also lost somebody. Oh yes, I also have COVID. It doesn't diminish the experience. And in fact, by, they say, when you're dealing with people that have gone through trauma, the last thing you should do is go, me too, because it just lacks all acknowledgement or empathy. It's about focusing on that individual's experience, because everybody's experiences are different. So I think it's and it still sits with people today, because there was a lot of trauma to go through, whether it was loss or health or financial. It was on a big scale.
Yeah, and because I'm just thinking of the knock-on effect that I think people don't, because they haven't really looked at it as trauma, they haven't realized that the knock-on effect of that is being disconnected, burnout, not connecting with your team, being in a remote environment, all the mental sort of trauma that is sort of associated to that as well. So besides the load shedding and the rest of what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, it's rather ridiculous, right? And I think that's also part of what makes South Africa so unique, and the experience that we've had around COVID so unique, because we've had to have additional challenges that many countries don't have to have. Many countries function quite naturally, normally, with having power and having a flexible and easy sort of adjusting government and policies that sort of assist that, or even public transport for that matter, right? With
you spot on, Kevin. It reminds me, we also went through a stage where we were doing the post-COVID interviews, and it was the weirdest experience. It was at the time of the riots in KZN, and all of a sudden we found that our COVID, it was almost like, COVID, so last season we've got a bigger crisis on our hands. So I think you hit the nail on the head. We certainly haven't just had COVID to deal with. There've been a few curveballs for many of our workforce.
Yeah, and for us, we also find that it's like we live in a with a constant anxiety that the rest of the world doesn't live with, right? Just for your own safety, and going out just to the shopping mall just to buy groceries. You don't know what's going to happen because the country's not safe. So as much as we go, it was just COVID. There's a lot of additional add-ons to this trauma that I call it trauma, because I think people need to just start hearing that it's been quite traumatic and devastating to a lot of businesses, to a lot of people's lives, and it's affected us from a mental health perspective to quite a large degree. And I think when we speak about mental health, for example, I think there's another area that has also added to why people are quietly quitting, why people are sort of just wanting to get away and resign and get away from they're trying to get away from it, right? And it's because of that, you know, the culmination of all of it put together has had such a vast impact on people's lives.
Something you touch on in terms of many of our staff in being in survival mode in some shape or form, and whether it's for our safety or job safety or whatever it is, in fact, one of the interviewees coined it beautifully when she said, just because I work for a big corporate does not mean I live in suburbia. So she said, you know, she lives in an informal settlement, and without COVID, her day-to-day challenges are pretty extreme, and COVID just exacerbated them, and then along with the many other challenges that have been added to that. So, and in fact, it was acknowledging the stark contrasts of different, you know, levels in terms of society and what people are facing, that in our report steered us away from doing percentages, because I found that if I was to say to you 80% of the staff are, it would diminish the value in the report. Because I think one of my big messages for employers is to, as much as you have a focus in business on personalized marketing, there needs to be a focus on personalized talent management, and that you can't take a brush and say, oh, well, we're going to put people in this category, or this is what everyone's challenges are very unique, and different to what we may assume they are. You know, we have a situation where in one of the organizations, you know, everyone's moaning about load shedding, and this individual hasn't had water for 5 months where she stays. Yeah. So, you know, it kind of puts things in perspective.
Natalie, just give me 1 sec, please.
Oh.
Sorry, I just got some cleaners outside making a whole bunch of noise. I'm going, okay, it's getting louder and louder and louder. I'll just cut this out. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, so carrying on from where we left off. So, one of those stories you just mentioned now with the fact that, you know, some people haven't had water for 5 months, like there's little things like that. And I love the fact that you say, you know, you work in a corporate environment, but I don't live in suburbia. And I think that is the very obvious juxtaposition that we're finding ourselves in, because, you know, one of the things I look at that on your feedback on this wonderful report that you've done is, you know, projects, fun, and values. And then you kind of go, how the hell are we supposed to have, you know, be productive and work on any of the projects, have fun and live this, you know, the values of this corporate, when I don't have water for 5 months? Do you know, like it's that contrast that I think that we're living in South Africa, and it's incredibly difficult for us to get that balance right. So, you know, where does that leave, you know, from your perspective, where does that leave corporates in how do we start taking action on, you know, fixing this and helping people?
The first action is just an acknowledgement and a sincerity, and you know, to acknowledge with the staff member, sure, but you haven't had water, and to be interested and to say, oh, what does that mean in your world? What does that mean to your day to day? So I think it's about acknowledging where different people are at. I think more than ever, from a corporate, from a small business, from a leadership point of view, it requires the one-on-ones, the conversations. You can't have enough conversations with your people, and understanding where they're at and what their needs are, and then employing a flexibility and a personalization to them. Not these one-size-fits-all HR policies.
Yeah. And I think maybe, shifting the conversations to, like you're saying, just acknowledgement first off, to start there, but also to reprioritize, right? Maybe reprioritize things like safety, things like just the basic human livable circumstances, and maybe corporates can sort of, instead of saying, guys, projects and fun, like we need to get out there, or we need to live the values of this business. Is anyone sort of having a conversation about, are you safe? Are you do you have transport? Do you live close enough to the work so that you're not spending half a salary on getting to work, or waking up at 4 o'clock just to get there because you live so far? Like, maybe it's a conversation. It's I don't know, it's like a revitalizing sort of brain frame that leaders need to have to really start going, people are in survival mode. People are completely unsure of everything. They're uncertain of everything. And that's why, part of showing up and quietly quitting at my job and going, dude, I really don't care about your fancy whatever, or your meeting right now. I barely eat proper food at night. That's that's the kind of position we're in. Do you think it's a call for leaders to really start renegotiating their value system, renegotiating, prioritize safety and security and basic human rights for people in this country, in the organizations?
Very much so. I think there's a real need, and for that one-on-one engagement and acknowledgement. And it's really interesting with all these employee programs. When you ask staff, they'll gladly tell you what their priorities are, where they're at, what they need, and the options for an employer are endless.
Yeah.
And definitely where you talk around values, it's not to diminish values. I just think that every corporate uses the same words, and so they become a little bit hackneyed, and they lose their impact and their meaning. And there's a call for sincerity and authenticity around understanding. And in fact, some corporates are really getting it right. So I'll give you a beautiful example of what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
It was one of our clients, particularly from a remote working point of view. They acknowledged with their employee that so she also was living in an informal settlement, and her husband was at home in the day and would go and work in the evening. And the requirement for her in the home and her role was to, when she was at home, there wasn't an acknowledgement of, oh, you've got a job and you need to be online. It was, well, you need to serve the family, and you need to do what you do at home. So the employer said, okay, that's fine. We can shift your working times to when your husband goes to work in the evening. And,
Oh, wow.
and so they shifted her working hours, and that alleviated a tremendous amount of stress. In our marketing agency, we did something quite similar, where one of our marketing executives, he is the youngest in the family, and culturally, it is the youngest's job to then look after the children. So he was also under tremendous pressure, where in the day his family environment is saying, well, you've got to look after the kids while we do what we need to do work-wise. And his employees saying, well, you're supposed to be working remotely. So again, there we shifted the time to alleviate that kind of pressure and stress.
And I think the only time that really happens is when leadership shows a tremendous amount of empathy, right? It's a tremendous amount of human ability to kind of go, if I was in this person's shoes, what would I need right now just to alleviate that? Because I think that's a completely other conversation. That's never mind the mental health and like the trauma that people have gone through. It's how do you sustain proper relationships? How do you live? How do you get through life just because of the dynamics and the crazy circumstances we're finding ourselves in?
And Kevin, I think empathy is an interesting word for me.
Yeah.
I think leaders are not understanding what that word means. So before getting to empathy, I think the answer is that leadership needs to be available. And availability means accessibility. It means they need to be around. Because if the staff member doesn't have that channel to share their situation, doesn't matter how caring and empathetic you are, you're not going to be aware of it. I've also found that leaders have confused empathy with not having the hard conversations. So that, just by being nice, and that's not going to help individuals either. So I'm finding in a lot of interventions and a lot of discussions that staff are missing people miss those hard conversations. They want to know where their blind spots are. They want to know what they're not getting right. They don't just want to have a manager that goes, yeah, great, lovely. In fact, they appreciate this is what you need to focus on. Maybe this is where you're going. And I think that word empathy sometimes gets confused with being soft and being nice.
Yeah, like that beautiful saying, I'm not trying to, you shouldn't be nice because my grandmother's cup of tea is nice.
Nice.
Not being nice, it doesn't serve anybody. And I think that's true to such a large degree because, very often when I do training for people, I start off with Kick-Ass Kevin. I introduce myself as Kick-Ass Kevin, and just purely to the point that we're, as much as we're here to solve problems and do things and get things done, I'm not here to be nice. I'm here to have the difficult conversations in a very respectful, very managed environment, so that you get to the solutions at the end of the day. But I'm not going to not say the thing that you guys are avoiding to say simply because it might offend you. It needs to be spoken about, right? And I think that's the point. I think, there's a difference between being nice and being empathetic, right? Standing in someone's shoes and hearing them and seeing it through their lens and understanding where they're coming from. That's, far better than just being nice to me, right? And it's far more constructive because, and essentially, it also, being empathetic and having the hard conversation steps you into coach role, right? So you're not rescuing people at every little whim that they have, because then they keep themselves in that victimized mode, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're having the hard conversation and you're coaching them through, okay, cool. So this has happened and this is happening. What is the next steps? What do we do? What are your action? What are you, and I think that sort of, add to your point, having the hard conversations is absolutely necessary.
Yeah. I had an interesting lesson in the last couple of years, though, and it was quite a personal one, where I realized that there was quite a bit of my leadership style that sucked. So I was taking pride in, I can have the hard conversations. Yeah. However, the way I was going about it really wasn't ideal. So I was thinking, with us all going on online, so I'd be quite comfortable in an open online meeting to say, no, I think that's awful, or I'm not happy with this. And it, blessedly, maybe through the availability and the relationship, at least with the staff, they had the comfort to say to me, that's really de-energizing. Please have the hard conversations and give me the feedback, but not in an open environment. And it made me aware of also choosing my timing. And I think that's where empathy also comes in, is acknowledging, okay, this is the conversation I want to have, or this is what, from a work point of view, I want to focus on. but more so than ever, I need to acknowledge, well, what's going on in the person's life? What is the environment looking like right now? What are they dealing with? Where are they at? And what's the best way to go about this? And that was an interesting one for me, because it's not a natural style.
Yeah.
Shoot from the hip, tell it like it is. So yeah, good to have the hard conversations, and good to consider, well, hold on, what's the bigger context, and what's the best way to go about it?
So I mean, the report is build a future ready workforce in a post-pandemic world. And if you had to sort of give us 5 key points that you want people, or what you would want to leave them with, what would that be, and what would be the considerations? Because I think a lot of leaders out there, as much as they are, and I always say this, just because I am the leader doesn't mean I have all the answers, and some of them don't. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They don't know that empathy is quite key, and niceness isn't useful, right? So what could you leave with us with five things that leaders out there could actually do today that's actionable?
Okay, I don't know if I'll need 5, but I know one that I think is really relevant right now. And probably the timing in terms of starting a new year's is probably relevant and a good one.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of individuals in the last couple of years, because of what we've gone through, be it lockdown and COVID and survival mode, it's put most people's careers on ice. And companies face an interesting challenge right now, because the staff member is looking and going, hold on, I've been in this job now for 3 years. What's my next step? And in a lot of instances, the challenge is, no, you haven't really been doing that job for 3 years. And you're not ready for that next step. And what then happens is, because there's not a conversation around that, and this is my advice, is that leaders should be meeting with their staff and looking at their personal situations as well as their careers, and really assessing with that individual, where do you think you are right now? Here's where we think you are right now, and where are you going? Give them some kind of line of sight of what they need to do to get to the next step, to avoid them going, well, I've been doing the same job, I'm bored, I'm not growing, there's no next step. Then they start looking for a job. And what really worries me with that, so here's the other piece of advice to employers. There's quite for all of us, let's work together as employers. Handle your recruitment responsibly. I think, because all you do by taking somebody who's maybe done a job for 3 years and thinks they're ready for the next step when they're not, is you set them up to fail. And so that's what, probably when we talk about a future-ready workforce, I've just seen too many people move into bigger roles prematurely. And for 2 reasons. One, their employer wasn't having a conversation in terms of, this is how we're going to partner with you to grow you, and you will grow, but here's why you're not growing this month. And on the other side, where the interviewing company's just trying to get a bum into a seat and going, oh, well, you've said all the right things in the interview, and you've been in that role for 3 years, you must be ready. They're not. And they're setting them up for failure. So that's probably from a future-ready workforce point of view. And we all know it, right? We all, talking about these one-on-one career conversations is nothing new. It just doesn't get prioritized. We'll get to it. And it doesn't get done.
No.
And I think more than ever, it needs to, I don't think we realize how many people also went into new jobs and new employers as lockdown hit. And they're still trying to figure out the lay of the land in the organization and how things are done. One of the employees, so here's maybe the third piece of advice. One of the employees said, yeah, I'm productive, I'm online. She said, but what I really miss is being able to look over my shoulder and just see what my colleague's working on. Or to be able to turn my chair and say to someone, does this look right? And so the other piece of advice when we talk about a future-ready workforce is, please don't think that just because you're in meetings online all day, that makes you productive and effective. We've set up something in our business where we just get online, a whole lot of us, and anybody in the company can join, and we just shoot the breeze, because with online meetings now, it's all about the agenda and get to the point, and you lose the water cooler conversations and just coming together. And it's amazing every single week what comes out of these free chats that just anybody can hop on and we talk about, whether it's personal or work related. So that's really helped, that piece that we've lost with the whole online working remotely.
I love it. And one thing I would add to, just listening to everything you've shared with us today is, in NLP, we learn one of the life principles that we sort of apply through everything, which is the law of regressive variety. I don't know if you know it, but it speaks to the law that states the person with the most flexibility of choices and behavior rules the system, right? And when, as leaders, when you really get to a position and you really put yourself in a position that you're more flexible with your own choices and your own behaviors, you're enabling yourself to be more adaptable and more agile, right? And easier. Yeah, you become an easier human being, right? And everything you're spoken to today, speaks to that. Just become more malleable and a little bit easier. And especially because we don't have bloody power. So just calm down. I was and I'm done speaking. I was watching a TikTok the other day, and someone says, he sort of opens the TikTok and says, "Can we now all just agree that on every meeting that we have, that none of this is really important because we're all going to die?"
I love that.
That might be a bit drastic, but so Natalie, tell us, can we find the report somewhere? Is it available to download, to go and check out? Because I think there's such valuable information for people to take from this.
Yes. So firstly, by making contact with me, that's the best way.
Yeah.
And all from our website. So we run a digital assistant app where we help people with all the noise in their lives. So we do anything, anywhere, anytime, and that's called Hey Jude. And you can download it off the Hey Jude website.
Ah, fantastic. Hey Jude, and that's a good way to get hold of you or get hold of this.
Yes.
It's the Build the Future Ready Workforce in a Post-Pandemic World, guys. I'm going to check that at that report. And thank you for our Chief Efficiency and Strategy Executive from PLP Group, Natalie Davies. Thanks for chatting.
Oh, Kevin, thanks a million. I really appreciate it. I've loved it.